So we're finally out of 7.4. We've been in there for a couple of days. We're jumping to 7.5. Factoring polynomials of the form x squared plus bx plus c. So jumping right in, I gave everyone in class this note sheet today. If you weren't in class, I would just recommend writing this in your notes. But we're factoring today polynomials when the degree of my polynomial, the degree is 2. If you don't know what the degree of a polynomial is, it's just the biggest exponent of my polynomial. So if I have x to the 4th plus 3x cubed plus 2x squared, the degree of this polynomial would be 4 because the exponent is 4. So today we're going to be dealing with polynomials that have a degree of 2, so their biggest exponent is 2. Also today, the number of terms in our polynomial is 3. Hopefully you all remember what terms are. Terms are monomials within our polynomial. Terms are separated by addition and subtraction. So in our polynomials today, we'll have a total of 3 terms. And lastly, on our polynomials, the coefficient of our x squared term is going to be 1 for today's purposes. So today we're looking at polynomials when the degree is 2, the number of terms is 3, and the coefficient of the x squared term is 1. We're going to learn how to factor these today. So they're in this form right here, x squared plus bx plus c. So if you notice on my notes right here, we've got this big old x over here by my x squared plus bx plus c. We're going to use that x to help us factor our polynomials. So when we're factoring our polynomials, we're going to create this x puzzle. I like to call it a puzzle because we have to solve it and figure it out. We put our c value in the top. That's a bad c. We take our b value, put it in the bottom. B is for bottom. Put b in the bottom. So when we're trying to solve this puzzle, we're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give me my c value and also add to give me my b value at the same exact time. So we're looking for 2 unique specific numbers that'll fit both these conditions at the same time. They multiply to give me c, add to give me b. So let's look down here at our steps to factoring success. Our first step when we're factoring our polynomials is we want to draw 2 sets of parentheses and put in the variable. Draw 2 sets of parentheses and put in our variable. So we'll draw our 2 sets of parentheses, and a lot of times we'll be dealing with x, so we'll fill in our variable of x. Step number 2. In the x puzzle, we want to put b in the bottom and c in the top. So we'll create our x puzzle, put our b value in the bottom, c value on top, and then step 3. We want to ask ourselves, what are the signs? For today's purposes, they're either both going to be positive or they're both going to be negative, and I'll kind of get deeper into that when we get into the examples. But just know for today that they're either going to both be plus or both be minus. So I'd fill those in. It's either x plus something, x plus something, or x minus something, x minus something. Step number 4, we want to go ahead and solve the puzzle and put those numbers in our parentheses. So once we solve our x puzzle, we can put those numbers in the parentheses. And then lastly, step 5, we want to check your work using FOIL. Hopefully we all remember FOIL. If you don't, the acronym is FOIL. F stands for first, O stands for outer, I stands for inner, L stands for last. That's the terms that we're multiplying within our binomials. So we just multiply our two factors out using FOIL. And if we get back to our original polynomial, then we know we have factored correctly. So let's get into some examples. This is just a little note here saying signs in parentheses will either both be positive or both be negative. I kind of covered that already. Just be aware of that for today's purposes. They'll be the same signs in our parentheses. So examples 1 through 5. So let's kind of take number 1 step by step. Step 1, if you remember, told me to draw 2 sets of parentheses. So that's what I'm going to do, draw my 2 sets of parentheses and put in the variable. The variable I'm dealing with right now is x, so I'm going to fill in my x. Step 1 is done. Step 2, in the x, so I need to go ahead and create my x, put b in the bottom and c in the top. So my b value is 5, so I'm putting that in the bottom. C value is 4, I'm putting that in the top. Step number 2 is done. Step number 3, I need to ask myself, what are the signs? What signs are going to go in the parentheses? Is it going to be plus plus? Is it going to be minus minus? So we get our signs from our original polynomial. If you look at the second sign, and it's a plus sign, that plus sign tells me that my signs are going to be the same signs. If this was a minus sign right here, it would tell me that my signs are going to be different. So in this case, since it's a plus, I know they're going to be the same. They're either going to be plus plus or minus minus. How I know if they're plus plus or minus minus, if this is a plus sign, I look over at my first sign. That sign tells me what they're both going to be. So since this is a plus, they're going to be the same. I know they're both going to be pluses because of that sign right there. So I fill those in to my parentheses. X plus something, X plus something. So step 3 is done. Step 4, I want to solve my puzzle and put in the parentheses. So I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give me 4 and add to give me 5 at the same time. So what I like to do sometimes if I can't figure it out is I like to list out all the factors of 4. So 2 numbers that multiply to give me 4 are positive 1, positive 4. 2 more numbers that multiply to give me 4 are positive 2, positive 2. So I'm looking for the set of 2 numbers that adds to give me 5 now. Well, 2 plus 2 doesn't give me 5. 1 plus 4 does, though. So 1 and 4 are the 2 numbers that satisfy my puzzle. They multiply to give me 4, add to give me 5, so now I can fill them into my polynomial, or my binomials. So I'm saying that this is my answer. X plus 1 times x plus 4. Now step 5 tells me to check my work using FOIL. So let's FOIL this out real quick. So F stands for first. I'm going to multiply the first term of each binomial together. X times x gives me x squared. Then I'm looking at the two binomials as a whole. I'm looking at the outer terms. So I'm doing x times 4, which is 4x. The inner terms, 1 times x, gives me x. And then the last terms, 1 times 4, gives me 4. Combining my like terms, I get x squared plus 5x plus 4. This is my original polynomial, so I know that my factored form checks out. Hopefully that makes sense. It does get a little easier the more you do it. So let's just jump into the rest of the examples. I'm going to go a little quicker since we saw a little more drawn out process. And for right now, I'm going to skip checking my work just for time's sake. So number 2, step 1, draw my parentheses, fill in my variables. Step 2, fill in my x puzzle. 10 goes up top, 7 goes in the bottom. Step 3, figure out my signs. Plus sign here tells me they're going to be the same. This sign tells me they're going to be both pluses. Step 4, solve the puzzle. Some factors of 10 are 2 and 5, 1 and 10. I'm looking for the 2 that add to give me 7, so that'd be positive 2 and positive 5. And now I can fill those into my binomials. So here'd be my answer on number 2. Once again, I'm not going to check my work just to save a little bit of time because we do have more examples on the next slide. Number 3, 2 sets of parentheses, fill in your variable. Filling in my x puzzle, 12 up top, 8 in the bottom. What are my signs? They're the same. They're positive. And now I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give me 12, add to give me 8. That would be 6 and 2. Now if you get to the point where you can figure out the puzzle without listing out all the factors of 12, then I'm okay if you do that. I don't expect you to list out these factors over here every single time. If you can figure that out in your head and fill it in the x puzzle, I'm okay with that. So here's my answer for number 3. Number 4. Draw my 2 sets of parentheses, fill in my variable. 36 goes up top, 13 goes in the bottom. Same sign, they're both positive. Looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give me 36, add to give me 13. That'd be a positive 9 and a positive 4. Fill that in to my parentheses. Now I had a good question in class today. Someone asked, how do I know to put the 4 first and the 9 second? To answer the question, it doesn't really matter. Multiplication is commutative. So x plus 4 times x plus 9 is the exact same thing as x plus 9 times x plus 4. So it doesn't matter which spot you put it in. And the last example on this slide, number 5. Draw my 2 sets of parentheses. Fill in my variable. X puzzle, 21 goes up top. 22 goes in the bottom. 2 numbers that multiply to give me 21. Add to give me 22. That'd be 1 and 21. So here's my answer for number 5. Hopefully that made sense. These are what we call sum and products. They're kind of we have this sum right here, and they turn into products after we factor them. So that's why they're called sum and products. Thursday, we'll see where this sign is negative and our signs will be different. Those would be called difference in products. So let's jump to the next set of examples. Let's kind of walk through number 6 kind of slow like we did number 1. First step, I need to draw my 2 sets of parentheses and fill in the variables. Step 2, fill in my X puzzle. 100 goes up top, negative 29 goes in the bottom. Step 3, I'm asking myself what are the signs. So this is going to be a little different now. Once again, we look to this sign first. If that's a plus, it tells me my 2 signs are going to be the same. This sign tells me what they are if they're going to be the same. So in this case, they're both minus. So now I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give me 100, add to give me negative 29. So that would be negative 25 and negative 4. Negative 25 times negative 4 is positive 100. Negative 25 plus negative 4 is negative 29. So I get x minus 25, x minus 4. So still kind of the same process we did on the previous slide. It's just we have the 2 negatives instead of the 2 positives. Number 7, I mean. 2 parentheses, fill in your variable, fill in the X puzzle, 40's up top, negative 13's down in the bottom. Same signs, they're both going to be negative, so minus, minus. So looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give me 40, add to give me negative 13, that's negative 8, negative 5. So here's my answer for number 7. If you're not understanding this, feel free to ask me questions tomorrow on your remote learning day. Number 8. Fill in the X puzzle, 24 up top, negative 14 down below. Same signs, they're both going to be negative. 2 numbers that multiply to give me 24, add to give me negative 14 are negative 2, negative 12. So here's my answer on number 8. Number 9, parentheses with your x's. 35's up top, negative 12 below. Same signs, they're both negative. 2 numbers that multiply to give me 35, add to give me negative 12 would be negative 7, negative 5. So x minus 7 times x minus 5 is my answer for number 9. And last but not least, x squared minus 10x plus 25. Do my parentheses with my variable. 25 is up top, negative 10 is down below. 2 numbers that multiply to give me positive 25, add to give me negative 10 are negative 5 and negative 5. So those go into my parentheses. Now this one's a little different because I can write this a different way. If I just have 5 times 5, I can rewrite that as 5 squared. Here I have x minus 5 times x minus 5, so I can rewrite that as x minus 5 squared, and that would be my answer. Once again, if you have questions, feel free to ask me tomorrow on the remote learning day. Here's our assignment. This worksheet will be posted to Canvas, and this will be due Wednesday. So tomorrow, due Wednesday, January 27th on Canvas. Hope you guys have a great day. We'll see you guys on Thursday.